ingredient, coconut oil, and sunflower oil. Now, within that group, and I am probably overstating the point, but the biggest thing that we can do is make sure we're accessing carnivores and omnivores, because if you're getting folks to consume Impossible Burger instead of animal-based meat, that's where you get the delta. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan consuming our product, more power to you. You're already doing the right things. But the biggest thing we can do is pull omnivores into basically the lower components of the food web. We want to get them lower on these trophic levels as opposed to eating high up on the food web where there's tons of resources going into the thing that you ate. So with that said, soy is obviously something that's associated with deforestation, or if not direct deforestation, land use conversions, especially in the Brazilian Cerrado, which has received a lot of attention. And I want to reference that right away because far and away, the driver of that deforestation, the land use change, is not from human consumption. This is not a tofu problem. This is because soy is worldwide almost predominantly geared at the livestock feed industry. So in the United States, like 90% of the soy and corn that's grown I'm not sure about corn, goes into livestock feed. Most of corn as well, it's field corn, not sweet corn. But the reason that you see these kinds of associations with soy are not because of soy-based burgers, but rather because of the livestock systems that rely on them as an input. And so, like I said earlier, about 13 pounds of corn, soy, forage goes in to make 1 pound of beef. So for that reason, if you're getting omnivores and carnivores, and you're bypassing that consumption, the best thing you can do to avoid deforestation from soy is actually eat a soy-based burger, because you're just using less of it for the product. Now that said, we're not going to like rest on our laurels and say, oh, just because consumer behavior is acting in X way, it doesn't mean we don't need to be sustainable in our supply chain. We source domestically in the United States. For all our major suppliers, I'm in direct conversations with them, and we have strict sustainability standards that entail zero risk of direct or indirect land use conversion. Sourcing from the United States, it's not a big concern, but that's true of our entire supply chain. So the other area that's kind of interest, and it's not an immediate problem, we don't currently have palm oil in our product portfolio for a number of reasons. One of them is these kind of sector-wide, constraints around sourcing and indirect land use conversion issues. But we do use coconut oil, and so if you think about the entire industry scaling up, what we need to be strategic about is making sure that as we increase demand on certain types of cropping systems, you can't generate the same issues that you would see with livestock. Now, the risks of that are much lower simply because the actual land use that goes into our product is so much lower. It's like 3.5 meters squared to get 1 pound of Impossible Burger. It takes like 70 square meters at a minimum to get beef. But still, if you're looking at converting these entire value systems, these entire value chains, you want to be really cognizant of this. And so I think it'll behoove our whole industry to be thinking really on like a 20-year time frame about what are the inputs. And so we did work recently with the University of Michigan where we kind of modeled this out. We said, look at this at a huge scale and tell us where problematic ingredients might be. And so because it's a tropical oil, coconut oil is an area where there's potentially a lot of room for investment from the plant-based meat industry, simply because a lot of the orchard systems, a lot of the plantation systems haven't seen that much investment. They're kind of lower productivity right now. There needs to be a lot of basically replanting. The trees are getting old. There's a senility issue. And so these are some of the things that it's not currently a risk, but it will be a risk in maybe like 10, 20 years. And that's where we need to be focused. So when we looked at coconut oil now, there's no extensification activity. There's no expansion. Demand actually has been dipping over the past several years. And so these are the kind of macro level dynamics we also look at in addition to our own supplier codes of conduct. But as a whole industry, looking over the horizon, there's areas where we need to be focused too.